Okay. I have to always read the date to make sure I'm in the right place. The August 28th meeting of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust is considered to be in order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the August 18th,
So moved.
14th meeting, excuse me.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the August 14th meeting. Are there comments or questions? Hearing none, voting please. Minutes are approved. Next item is the consent docket.
Move approval subject to individual consideration.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Are there matters to be considered individually?
Mr. Chairman, staff has a change on item Q. We have posted that as a permanent easement request, and I understand that that's a temporary easement for construction, not a permanent easement.
Any other comments on the consent docket? Would the motion for approval accept the change from permanent to temporary on the easement?
So moved.
And I'll approve it.
Okay, just on the agenda, it's wrong. Okay, that's very good. Okay, hearing no other comments, voting please. The consent docket's approved. Next, the concurrence docket.
Now that we've got it, can I ask a question? Sure. We have a project here to lease of space to organic farming operation. Can you say a few words, Mark, about that project?
Yes, sir, happy to. The Water Trust periodically receives unsolicited proposals for use of their land. We've received a request to lease about 1 acre of land to construct a 32,000 square foot greenhouse on the east side of Lake Hefner, south of the ball fields at Britton Road. The lease is something we bring to Aqua to determine whether staff should pursue. We've not vetted the potential issues with the lease, as is our common practice. So we will be bringing this back to you, identifying terms and looking at locations specifically after you consider this item.
Marcia, do you have any feel at all when that you might come back with more detailed information?
We have to as soon as possible. It should not take us a long time. We want to get to the point where folks are comfortable going forward to whatever land use requirement through the Planning Commission permitting process.
Do you have a feel for what the timing is of the potential leaseholder out there is?
We have done these leases as fast as 6 weeks. More complicated, particularly in this case, we have to go through a land use review. It could take a couple of months.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the concurrence docket?
So
We have a motion?
move the concurrence docket subject to individual consideration.
Have a motion and a second to approve the concurrence docket. Are there other matters to be discussed separately? Hearing none, voting please. Concurrence docket's approved. Next is item 5. There's a series of emergencies which were deferred from a previous meeting. First one's item 5B. Northwest 89th and Deep Fork Creek problem.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 5V. Questions? Item 5B is approved. Excuse me, item 5A is approved. Item 5A. Item 5B. I'll get it straight here in a second. It's the same thing. It was deferred from previously because we lacked enough votes to approve it.
Second.
A motion and a second to item 5B. Voting, please. 5B is approved. Item 5C. It's another one of the previously deferred matters.
Move approval.
Motion and a second to approve item 5C. Questions? Comments? Voting, please. C is approved. Item 5D. Question.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second on item 5D. Voting, please. 5D is approved. 5E.
Move it.
Motion and a second to approve item 5E. Comments or questions? Hearing none, voting, please. 5E is approved. Next item is item 6, items for individual consideration. First item concerns a joint resolution with the Water Utilities Trust in the city concerning Kitchen Lake.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 6A. This is something that's been ongoing. This lake, I think I've probably discussed it before, but the lake is on city water trust property. We're going to let the park department manage it. There's funds in a prior bond issue to do some substantial improvements there, and so this is a big step forward to moving that forward. Are any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, if indeed we ever built the West Elm Reservoir, this lake would be in the side of that new reservoir.
No, sir, it would be at the very tail end of the upper side.
Would we be able to keep the lake intact as a fishing area?
Yes, and the park would stay in place too, as best we understand it today.
Yeah, it's part of the West Elm Creek take area, but it probably wouldn't, it's not on the footprint of where the lake would be. The next item is item 6B. We do not need executive session, is that right? Consider that stricken. Deleted. Have a motion to delete it and a
Second.
Second. Voting, please. 6B is deleted. Next is item from trustees. Start with Cody. You can go first. Do you have any comments? That's what, on the horseshoe, we actually, each person is asked individually, so it's kind of, it puts the pressure on you. You have to make a comment. You can't just.
Lincoln.
On item 8A, which shows lake levels, did the recent rain help us any? Was it come in the right place?
Regrettably, no. On neither the southeast or the northwest system, we got about 1,500 acre-feet of water in Lake Canton, which every bit helps. And the land is probably as pure at your house. It's a little bit wetter today. That's a good thing, getting ready for fall rains. We need the soil to soak up some rain so it will produce good runoff for us.
It is interesting to point out, though, after 2 years of drought summer conditions, that Hefner's in just a little bit better shape. It's about the same as last year. Overholser's in better shape. Draper, not related to the drought necessarily, but is 8 feet better than last year. Atoka is a couple feet worse, but we can pump up from McGee Creek to take care of that. McGee Creek is essentially the same, and Canton is a couple of feet worse. And so it's just, I don't know what I glean from that, but I think it's interesting about the relative levels. And of course, we're going into the historically wetter fall period of time, so we generally get some rain in September, October.
When is the state fair again?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. State fair.
Okay. Do we have any idea why the lakes are in such good shape after 2 years of drought?
Well,
We have a lot of sources. And
the southeastern lakes, we have been pumping as much water as we can from the southeastern lakes for several months. And you see a very small impact on those lakes, despite very dry conditions there as well. And that's good information for us, not something we've tested at this level previously. That additional 8 feet of water in Lake Draper came entirely from Lake Atoka and McGee Creek Lake, of course. What we have done is deplete Lake Canton. And it's returned about half full, a little under half full, very much what we would have predicted for drought conditions for that system. We, of course, are looking for very wet times of the year and hoping that Lake Hefner will replenish itself through natural stream flow rather than taking more water from Canton, but we do have the right to take water if it's necessary.
Have we passed the point at Draper where it will continue to lose? It'll start to gain now?
Should start gaining again now. Demand is down to around 125 million gallons a day. When last we met it, we were still in the 180s, I think. the first 6 weeks of the year, we exceeded last year. What I had forgotten is that this was also a continuing dry period. The next 4 weeks continued to be dry last year, and so now you should see the lakes looking better than they did at this time last year, and continuing to improve. We're of course still watching the forecasts for La Nina patterns, worrying.
The next item is the Uniform Agricultural Appraisal Report on some property on West Elm Creek.
Move we receive the report.
Second.
This this has been done in conjunction with our efforts to move the Quail Ridge area, is that right?
I'm sorry, no. Staff has been charged with keeping the rates at which you rent property at a competitive, close to market rate. We're currently leasing land about 4,000 acres between $4 and $18 an acre. It appears from the appraisal staying above $12 would be a goal. We are going to, as we renew leases, propose some potential new rates and see what our customers think about that. If we adjusted your fees, we'd see about a 25% increase in it's a marginal from $40,000 a year to $50,000 a year.
Marcia, I've got another question. We added 371 meters.
We did.
Were those all new construction?
Yes.
Did we see a similar increase in building permits?
Yes. Project work is up about 20% over last year, just generally, and that's translating into fewer plans on the shelf, more plans in construction in the land development side of the house.
Any other questions about this? The next item is item C, which is ad valorem tax versus payment in lieu of taxes. Just a report that I had requested earlier about reaching a decision concerning some payment made to the counties in southeastern Oklahoma, specifically Atoka County and probably Cole County. Isn't there some fractional thing in Cole County?
Very small portion.
Very small part.
Mr. Chairman, I don't really have a problem with 35,000 or 39,000 or whatever that number comes out to be. I am a little, I don't know exactly the process or the procedure for doing so. I mean, you just send them a check, or I assume it would be accompanied by a letter saying that we're voluntary doing this, because I'm sure we want to make sure that we understand that it's not a mandatory type of thing, that we, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking about what that process would be.
Don't we have to be careful that it's not viewed as a contribution?
Yeah.
It's not viewed as what?
A contribution. Payment in lieu of taxes sort of eliminates that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I think we say that following the U.S. government policy,
Yeah.
Starting along those lines. But I think we would want to not make it clear that we don't have a legal responsibility to do this, but we do believe that it is our.
It's less money than I thought it would be, but I think the principle's the same, regardless of the fact that it's a small amount of money. I think the principle's the same.
Would we pass a resolution stating it was our intent to do so, and then we could repeal that if we wanted to sometime in the future? I guess, I don't know, Councilman, I'm just trying to figure out what that process would be. If we pass a resolution and directing staff to do it with a, and you could craft a letter as a part of that resolution that would be sent down to.
Can't we ask that this be, that question be answered by legal between now and the next meeting? to some extent, it's going to be policy, obviously, but there has to be some process that we go through to transmit the money from here to there that avoids the contribution piece.
I would recommend Marcia not bring cash.
Okay. All right. Well,
So there should be some process in between there somewhere.
I appreciate it being back this quick, but I will look forward to seeing it again at the next trust meeting.
So we would direct staff to come back with a resolution and develop a process to facilitate the end?
And identify the source of funds.
Yeah.
And we'll offer you advice about the approaches that you might take. I think there may be more than one, there may be some that are better than others.
Would there be a difference if we paid it as a fee in lieu of taxes as opposed to, if there were two options here? I mean, would the method have anything to do with that? I think if it does, that could be part of your recommendation when it comes back in 2 weeks. One calculation is at $39,000, the other is at $35,000. So if there is a question about which one would be the better way to calculate it to avoid some of these problems, would want.
Are we going to do that on all the lakes we have? For instance, Lake Hefner and Draper, do we have a similar situation? We've taken land out of the tax rolls.
Any property the city owns for any reason has been done that to. That's the same way.
Would we make the same determination, though,
We could.
to pay off some school districts because of what they lost at Hefner or Draper? I'm not just a question. I don't know what the answer is, but it's something I think before we get carried away and do this, we need to consider all the possible.
I think we're in a little different situation in southeastern Oklahoma, though, than we are here in Oklahoma City. I just think there's a difference between the.
Mr. Chairman, we'd be happy
I think
to
it's a precedent. I think it's a precedent that could be construed to have the same effect here as down there, and that we need to look at what that would do to the numbers.
I understand.
Mr. Chairman, we'd be happy to take a look at it and see if there are vehicles available.
Okay. All right, the last item on the regular part of the agenda is the capital improvement program activities. There's a report on that. Are there comments concerning that?
No, sir, simply, we are implementing your capital program. Wanted you to know that we've looked at how the water system performed and are, again, also pursuing the wastewater program. We are updating, even though we're coming through the process to officially approve the CIP here in the next couple of weeks, we have started updating the long-range capital program to include a couple of major projects that we have underway, and we'll be bringing you more information about that as we get information we think is finalized through preliminary engineering reports. I wanted to let you know that our concept is in the northeast part of the city. This would be the Bryant, 150th, Memorial Road, generally would be a point of interest, but property to that point as well, and from the primary property west of there and east of there as well. We had a continuing pressure problem. We recommend that we go ahead and pursue 2.5 miles of 24-inch water main extension, that we do that with your existing capital funds that we've set aside for renewal and replacement. There are $14 million in renewal and replacement funds this year. We don't think it will be a horrible hardship. We'll show you that in detail, what loses and what wins, so that we can build that pipeline to solve the problem. That's an area where we put in pump stations. Pump stations worked. We found when we had good pressure, we were just overcoming the system. There's not enough pipe anymore to meet the customer demand. We think we have the opportunity to add some new customers along that pipeline that don't have access to water.
Refresh my memory, Marcia, does the 5-year construction program include a connection between Draper and Hefner?
It starts that construction, and that's one of the major projects that we're working on. We're trying to fit those two projects together to make certain that we're planning for that connection. It appears at this time that will not be a raw water connection, that it will be a treated water connection, based on what the engineers are telling us.
If the pipeline was operated as a raw water connection, could it then be readily converted to treated water? Is there something we'd have to do to the pipe to clean it out, or?
We would definitely have to clean it severely, disinfect it. I am not certain whether it can be reused. We'll find that out for you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. Anyone here to want to address the trust? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.